Now we come on stage. I was seated on the front row and got these performers as they perform on stage at the Apollo Theater about 1952.
He gets to Harlem and he moves to the 135th Street YMCA, which at the time provided temporary housing for newcomers to New York. And at various points in its history, different famous Harlemites lived there, like Malcolm X, Jacob Lawrence, Claude McKay, and Langston Hughes. So he's immediately kind of thrown into this really creative community, not only at the Apollo, but also at the 135th Street Y.
All right, here we have the Chris, the first integrated singing group. They did very well.
So when he comes here, he already knows that he's going to be, you know, the house photographer, more or less, for the Apollo.
In other places, artists are invited to do like 1 or 2 night engagements, but at the Apollo, sometimes performers were doing, 5 shows a day. So it gave Anderson an ample opportunity to shoot these performers. And as he kind of struggled to kind of get a foothold in the press, he realized that these montages were actually doing really well commercially with the performers. So he made his living entirely off selling these commemorative montages to people who were playing on stage at the Apollo.
The thing about Gordon Anderson is, he had a hustle, but all entrepreneurs have some sort of a hustle. He figures out how to not just take the shots of people as they're performing. They don't want pictures of them with their mouths open. They want more dignified things. So he starts to take photographs, for example, of them walking out on stage. And then he figures out how to take photographs of instrumentalists. He's got to get in a certain place to be able to do that.
We have here the camera that in oral history interviews he said he used to do a lot of his photography.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a Mercury 2 camera. It was a cheaply produced camera that came out after World War II. It had the ability to shoot half-frame exposures. So you could double the amount of pictures you could take on one single roll. So it was a very economic choice for him to be using. And he'd also get more material for his photo montages. He was shooting, he was developing, he was putting them in these frames and then going back and selling them to the performers.
These montages, how did he create them?
He would make these photo montages in a homemade darkroom set up in his apartment. He basically had a cardboard template where each of these little wedges were removable pieces of cardboard. With the enlarger on, he would go basically frame by frame, exposing different parts of the composition by removing those wedges. This template structure allowed him to change out the central image depending on who he was trying to sell the composition to.
He sold the backing vocalists, backup dancers, guitar players, and he puts them in the center and he'll put Ray Charles around the outside.
Yes.
I mean, he was selling...
Beauty.
He was selling dreams.
He was selling, of course, you have to wake up and have a dream. You couldn't get on that stage unless you have a dream.
And here is the ever-popular Tito Puente. And I remember this show quite well, and what an exciting show it was. Love this show.
Montage has a long tradition in the popular press, in newspapers and magazines, as a kind of commercial tool. During this era of bebop, there were a lot of other cultural producers working in Harlem who were inspired by the language of jazz and montage. For example, Langston Hughes in 1951 publishes Montage of a Dream Deferred, and he writes in the introduction that he was inspired directly by the bebop music scene.
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore?
So I really see these works as a commercial response to the music of Harlem at this time in history.
I think that in the time that he's here, he is not so much the hustler. He has become an artist by being able to capture performers in so many different ways, on stage, back door, in the dressing rooms, in the wings. It's he that they trust. He is capturing, at that moment, where you are as your best.